Hello again. It's good to be back. This is Athena Jezik, and we have Corrina here. She's got a little bit of a neck issue going on today. It's not real serious. Her head does turn without a whole lot of restriction. It's somewhat fluid in it, but there's just something that's not quite right. And I think I'm already finding it. But you know, a lot of us do get cricks in our necks from time to time. How about you? Do you get cricks in your necks? Do you get them when you wake up in the morning, or maybe fall asleep sitting at your computer a little bit, or they kind of hurt sometimes, and sometimes they work out really well, and sometimes they get kind of knotted up. Misalignment of the subtle structures is often the root cause of chronic pain, injuries, and chronically high levels of stress hormones. In this course, you will learn about the subtle anatomy and a protocol for assessing and aligning the subtle structures. So I'm just feeling back here to the muscles that are on either side of the spine. And it does feel, is it more on your right-hand side? Feels like, yeah, okay, I think I've got it pegged. And it is a little bit of a knot kind of feeling. Of course, you know, the knots are not like a rope knot. It's more of a hardening kind of spot of the muscle where it's just tense. It can't really release very well. So it feels kind of tight and like a bump. And so a lot of that is helped a lot with a little very, very light touch and some of the subtle anatomy technique. And yeah, it's going into the bone a little bit. So the bone is just a little bit subluxed from what it feels like, but not enough to really cause a range of motion dysfunction. But it does feel like the bone is just a tad out. So I'll be getting in between there with the subtle anatomy in between those bones and seeing if we can expand them a little bit to make sure the discs are all in order and get that going. Okay, and then of course we want to check the alignment of the clavicles, because that's a big part of the neck for attachments, and we want to check that sternoclavicular joint. And again, you want to feel in there with massaging the muscles a little bit, finding if there's any rough spots there. And then if you do find a rough spot, you can apply that technique subtly to just help the muscle relax a little more. When you work the subtle anatomy, you do have to understand there is a technique to it. You can't just go in there and pretend like you know what you're doing, because you have to understand what you're doing. And that is one of the reasons why I've developed the course, so those of you who are therapists can expand your tool belts and still work where you're working, but just have another technique in there that can help people a little more deeply. And if you are a person that goes for a lot of these massages, you might want to start looking for the people who can work the subtle anatomy, because this clavicle is a little bit out, this sternoclavicular joint is a little bit out, which is probably causing a little of the muscle to be in a little bit different position. So we want to make sure that that's in alignment. And it feels like it's moving ever so slightly. It's so small, but these small things can turn into big things, and that's what we don't want to have happen. I can hear a little gurgling even going on, so something opened up. It sounded like it was more kind of in the neck area, maybe more the throat. And then you also want to check the sternocleidomastoid joint as well. That's the other side of the the clavicular acromion joint, which is the other side of the clavicle. and find that where that junction is. And that's a little joint too, and that feels pretty good. So it hasn't really expanded out this far. I'm going to make sure that that joint is in place. So I will just hold that a little bit while that's happening. A lot of this subtle work too, there's you use energy as well. So there's a bit of development with how to either push energy in, or sometimes you have to pull the energy out. Oftentimes you can just be in neutral. Now, the right-hand side is a little tighter in this. As I was working down it deeper in with the energy, I can feel that it is a little bit tighter now in that muscle area around the joint. So we want to help that to soften. And just keep that opened a little bit more. And even though this doesn't really seem related directly to where we found the little anomaly back in her neck at about C4, C3, C4, it does have any kind of anomaly where there's any kind of a misalignment is going to go throughout the body in other areas. It's indirectly, but it still has quite a bit of impact. And just by correcting that has softened this up back here by the spine. It's still got a little ways to go. We're going to be working the front and the back. And that's real good. Okay, so this is just like preliminary to find out what's going on. And then I always like to drain it a little bit because sometimes there's fluid retention. That's not very big. You don't see it. You don't see swelling or anything, but the fluid of the body is everywhere. So that's nice to have it move and make sure that it's not going to coagulate or become a little more gel-like in just a small area. Just kind of keep everything opened is really important. Okay, now I think I'm going to add a little bit of oil and we'll get into some of the bigger muscles. So I've got the oil here. And I'll set that back there. Ooh. Okay, we're going to just stretch across the clavicular area, the upper part of the chest and up the neck and behind the neck, or the back of the neck, I should say. And then again, you can slide those fingers along there. Oh, there was there's something going on. We will have to definitely turn her over because there's something going on here with the trapezius and the levator. I think it's both of those muscles that are giving us a little problem with that neck. Yeah, okay. So we'll go around the shoulders. This shoulder over here is a little bumpier, the right shoulder. Has a little bit more kind of washboard feeling. I am getting into the muscle. And that could be contributing a little bit to it. More than likely that would start taking it into the shoulders a little more than the neck. But again, we're very much connected throughout the whole body. There's times when I'll be doing the cranial work and people get really inside of themselves and with the subtle anatomy, and if I'm touching them maybe on the shoulder, they'll feel it down in their leg or hip or some other place. Sometimes they'll feel it in an organ, and it can be a kind of a shocking kind of sensation, and it lasts for a very short while, but that's the connection that we have through all of this fascial structures and all the veins and the fluids and all the things that need to be open and well aligned. there's not a whole lot of attention given to the subtle anatomy, unfortunately. And the more people learn about it, the more efficient the results are going to be for people. Because those little tiny parts, they also have a neural pathway. And so it's good to have a muscle or the changes in the memory patterns for those tiny little structures as well, not just the big muscles. The big muscles are nice to relax and get blood flow going, but there's so much more to the body than just that. And also when you get into the more subtle parts of the body, you are able to access the energy parts of the body. And I think even people that work off the body should be able to feel the energy in the body as well, because they can align it, and then the flow of the energy is going to be a little more pure through the meridians and chakra system and all of that fun stuff that we're learning so much about. Now I'm going to go see if the oil is pretty good. I'm going to get a little bit more oil, not much, just to get under her chin. The under the chin, where the chin is, and the structures under the chin are really pretty. The oral cavity is really quite deep, and there's a lot of muscles that will be tying into the jaw. And it's good to also pay attention there. There's also very delicate structures there, and you don't want to work hard with that. So with massage, just be gentle with the massage. And then if you feel like you need to, then you can take the subtle techniques and work that too. But usually I feel with a lot of people when I run across the jawline that there's a lot of kind of that washboard feeling, because the muscles of, they chew and they do all kinds of things. They move a lot. So that's just another place to pay attention to, and up along where the joint is. The joint of the jaw is about right there. So you can massage into there too and get into the joint, and you can also feel if the joint is balanced by on each side. And so if it's not balanced, then again you can do one of those the little technique to align that jaw with each other. Sometimes it goes rather quickly, sometimes it takes a while, because the jaw actually has two different motions. It's a ball and a socket as well as a gliding joint, so that can cause some problems. And a lot of times we'll maybe clench our teeth, and then it makes it hard to open our mouth. And so that's why it's good to work the joint a little bit, just to make sure that it's open. And then up under the chin again. Now that's much more smooth, very smooth coming along the jawline. And then we can go down through this sternocleidomastoid muscle. Now that is at the mastoid process, which is right behind the ear. And then you can just draw that down into the sternum, so it comes about there to the sternoclavicular area. And you can work that to make sure that that muscle is good. Now, sometimes with massage, you can take that muscle and kind of pinch it. I know I've had that done to me, and sometimes the pinching is a little bit harder than I like. So when I get underneath that muscle, I like to do it very, very gently. Of course, I don't like any kind of heavy-handedness with body work. So I might be a little more sensitive to some people. I've just gotten so used to the subtle stuff. Okay, and around there. Up, checking all this out. Around here. Making making little circles. This is all massage here. And then coming underneath a little bit, where we're going to get a little bit later. And oh, there's some crepitus over on the left side that I can feel already. Now the left side has the crepitus, but that could also be affecting this right side here. Although as I glide my fingers up along where it was a fairly moderate size, like restriction in the neck, is flattened out a great deal. I'm going to hold that and do some energy transfer between the 2 points where I'm feeling the crepitus, and transfer some energy in between that, and then lighten it up and get that, see if the two are unwinding, if they're dancing together. And there's a little bit of a dance going on, so somehow, whatever happened, maybe she slept a little crooked, or maybe from carrying all of the equipment around. It's hard to say how we get into those positions, but when they're there, and they don't always feel real good. But if you still have fluidity, then a lot of times it'll just kind of slip back in over time. It's really difficult when the range of motion is restricted. That's when it really is a bother. And then you can just brush up through the neck from the spine, coming up, spreading those muscles that connect to the base of the skull, and letting them kind of spread open. And then test one more time on these top muscles, this part of the trapezius and the levator muscle, where they're along the scapula. I'm right along the scapula as well. And the slower you go, the more you're going to feel. And oddly, the lighter you go, the more you're going to feel. Because oftentimes when there's too heavy of hands, that the body will push back and it feels like it's a worse situation than it really is. And there's a lot of unwinding right here going on both sides. So I'm going to take that a little bit out, a little bit more. And I'm going to push some energy into that. And that really slipped it around. That's really slipping it around. So that was really an energetic release. Okay, then I'm going to just have her head come up here, and I'm going to get to the base of the skull and check the tension right at the skull line, which is nice. It's not restricted at all. And of course, I like to do the occipital base release because that's something that really does relax people down. That part of the neck holds the head primarily. There's other muscles that help, but just to let it sink down and just let it feel nice and soft. Oh, there was the muscle was kind of rebellious there for a minute. There was some tension in there. And it just kind of felt like a little hiccup. Okay, that looks good. That feels good. And I'm going to do just a little bit more brushing that open. And then I'm going to go more with each individual finger with coming out from the vertebrae on a side sweep. And then, yeah, it feels a bit different now. There's been quite a bit of change right there. Enough change that I'm happy with that. And then I'm just going to check her range of motion, see if there's something that's catching or if it's moving pretty good. That feels good. Of course, Corrina will know the most. Yeah, the range of motion feels very fluid. And then, of course, I like to do a little range of motion where I'm lifting the head up and then kind of arching the neck back and then stretching it as well. So you just open up those neck joints. So this is like a part 1 that we're doing because it's the face up side for the neck. So in the next video, we're going to continue and do some other techniques back there to continue working on this little area of the neck. Even though it worked out very well this way, it's nice to have on the other side because you can go a little bit farther down the back and get a little bit more of the involvement of some of those muscles that come into the neck. So with that, I say thank you so much for viewing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are interested in learning the subtle work, just check out the course, and we will see you in the next video. I want to invite you to explore my course, The Foundations of Subtle Alignment. It is going to take you beyond the work of massage therapy. It will take you into the world of the subtle anatomy. Misalignment of the subtle structures is often the root cause of chronic pain, injuries, and chronically high levels of stress hormones. In this course, you will learn about the subtle anatomy and a protocol for assessing and aligning the subtle structures.